It's been 3 years since Amanda died, but every night around 2:47 a.m., I still get a text from her number. Sometimes it's a single word, "Hey." Other times it's something that feels like she's standing right behind me, whispering through the phone. "I miss you, Tom." At first I tried to rationalize it. Some kind of cruel prank maybe. Someone hacked her old number, or it got recycled by the carrier. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Because Amanda's number was disconnected the same day she died. I made sure of it myself. Amanda and I were married for 8 years before our marriage fell apart. We weren't bad people, we were just broken in different ways. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room and burn it down in the same breath. Passionate, unpredictable, and intoxicating. When things were good, they were perfect. But when things went bad, it was like living inside a storm. Our fights were violent, emotional, and endless. She accused me of things I never did, and I, in turn, accused her of not being the same woman I fell in love with. The last night we saw each other alive, she screamed that she wished I was dead. I remember slamming the door, the sound echoing in the hall, and that was the last time I ever saw her face. The next morning I got a call from the police. They'd found her car crushed under the old iron bridge, half submerged in the river. No skid marks, no brake, no chance she survived. For weeks I didn't eat or sleep. Guilt hollowed me out from the inside. I blamed myself for everything, every argument, every cruel word. I even kept her phone even though it was shattered beyond repair. It was found in her car, screen cracked like a spiderweb soaked in river water. 3 months after her funeral, the first message came. "Amanda, you still awake?" My chest went cold. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I managed to breathe again. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. The next night, another text. "I can't sleep. It's cold here." That one made me throw the phone across the room. It smashed against the wall, battery skittering across the floor. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. I changed my number. I switched carriers. And still, somehow, the messages found me. Sometimes they were blank. Sometimes they contained things only Amanda could have known. Private jokes, names of places we'd been, details no one else could possibly guess. One night, I got a picture. It was our old house, taken from the outside. Curtains drawn, porch light off. Except, I didn't live there anymore. I'd moved months after she died. The next morning I drove out there. The house had been empty since I sold it. Windows boarded, lawn overgrown. But there on the porch was a single white rose. Amanda's favorite flower. That night I drank until I couldn't feel anything. I wanted to believe I was losing my mind. It would have been easier than believing what I was starting to suspect. But when I passed out, I dreamed of her. She was sitting at the foot of the bed wearing that red sweater she used to sleep in. Her hair was wet, dripping onto the carpet. Her face pale as candle wax. She smiled at me, slow and sad. "You shouldn't have left me," she whispered. "You promised you'd never leave." I woke up gasping. My sheets were damp, and the faint smell of river water lingered in the room. A month later, I started getting calls, always from unknown numbers. When I answered, all I could hear was static and faint breathing, like someone was holding the phone just inches from their mouth. The police dismissed it as a prank. My friends told me I needed therapy. But one night, while half asleep, I answered out of reflex. "Tom." That voice. Soft, trembling, and so painfully familiar. It was Amanda. "I can't find you," she said. "It's dark here. The river won't let me go." I sat frozen, unable to speak. The line went dead. After that, everything in my life started unraveling. I'd find her handwriting in my notebooks, little hearts, the way she used to sign her name. I'd smell her perfume in my apartment, faint and floral. I even heard her humming through the walls sometimes. The same tune she used to hum when cooking dinner. One evening, I came home to find muddy footprints leading from my front door to the bedroom. The trail ended beside my bed. On the pillow lay my phone. Screen on, message open. Amanda, you shouldn't have let me drown. I dropped to my knees. I didn't, I whispered, choking back tears. I didn't let you. But maybe, in some twisted way, I did. That night I drove to the bridge, the same one where they'd found her car. The air was sharp, biting cold. I parked at the edge and walked toward the railing. The river below was black, rippling under the moonlight. I looked down and whispered, Amanda, if you're here, I'm sorry. The wind picked up. For a second I thought I heard something, a faint splash, or maybe just the wind. But then my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Amanda. Turn around. Every hair on my body stood up. Slowly I turned. Standing by my car was a figure, dripping wet, barefoot, wearing that same red sweater. Her head tilted slightly, and I swear her lips curled into that same broken smile. I stumbled backward. You're not real, I said, trembling. You're gone. She took one slow step forward, water streaming down her face. I told you, she said softly. I can't leave until you come with me. The next thing I remember is waking up in my car parked miles away from the bridge. My clothes were soaked and my phone was dead. When I turned the key, the radio came on by itself, and through the static I heard her voice again. I miss you, Tom. I screamed and smashed the radio with my fist. Days turned into weeks. The texts kept coming, more frequent, more desperate. Why did you let me die? You promised forever. Come home. One night, I broke down and texted back, What do you want from me? Her reply came instantly. The truth. That word haunted me. The truth. What truth? I went back through the police report, the photos, everything I could find about her death. They said she'd been speeding, no sign of foul play. But the more I looked, the more things didn't add up. The seatbelt wasn't fastened. The brake line had been cut. And her phone, the same one they found in the car, it was still in evidence. But if that was true, whose phone had been texting me all this time? My blood ran cold. I called the detective who'd worked the case. He told me the evidence had gone missing 2 years ago. Her phone was gone. That night I dreamed again. Only this time it wasn't her face I saw. It was mine, reflected in the water, looking down from the bridge. And in that reflection, I remembered something I'd buried deep inside. The night of her death, we'd fought. She'd called me from the car, crying, saying she wanted to end it all. I'd told her to stop being dramatic and hung up. The last words I ever said to her were, "Then go ahead." She did. The text stopped for a few days after that. I thought maybe she'd finally found peace. But then, 3 nights ago, I got one last message. Amanda, it's time. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But last night while driving home, my GPS suddenly rerouted. I wasn't paying attention until I realized where it was leading me. The old iron bridge. My hands weren't my own anymore. I couldn't turn the wheel, couldn't stop the car. The headlights illuminated the railing ahead, the same spot where she went over. I tried to hit the brakes, but the pedal went straight to the floor. And that's when I saw her, standing in the middle of the road, soaking wet, smiling. The impact should have killed me. But I woke up hours later in my bed, completely dry. My phone on the nightstand buzzing with a new message. Amanda, thank you for joining me. My chest tightened. I looked at the window. The night outside was unnaturally still. Then I caught my reflection in the glass and I realized I couldn't see my breath. I touched my chest. No heartbeat, no warmth, just silence. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. She's not your ex-wife anymore. My screen went black. They say the worst part about divorce is the silence afterward. But for me, silence never came. When Emily left 2 years ago, I thought I'd finally be able to breathe again. We'd spent years tearing each other apart. Accusations, jealousy, late-night fights that ended with slammed doors and tears. Our marriage had rotted from the inside long before the papers were signed. When she packed her things and walked out, I thought I'd finally escaped the storm. But the house never stopped sounding like she was still here. It started one night, maybe 3 weeks after she'd gone. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still flickering, empty beer cans on the table. Around 1 a.m., I woke to a faint noise from the kitchen, the rhythmic sound of something being chopped. At first I thought I was dreaming, but as I sat up I heard it again, steady, deliberate, like a knife hitting a wooden board. Thok, thok, thok. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. The sound stopped. I walked toward the kitchen, still half drunk and groggy, heart pounding against my ribs. The lights were off, but the moonlight from the window cast pale shadows across the countertops. The air smelled faintly of onions and garlic, Emily's favorite combo whenever she made her famous chicken soup. But the cutting board was clean, the sink was dry, the stove was cold. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe I'd left the TV on a cooking channel or something. But when I turned around to go back to bed, there was something on the table that hadn't been there before. A spoon, silver, bent at the handle. Emily used to do that when she was angry. Bend the spoon just slightly before throwing it into the drawer. A nervous tic, I guess. But this one was bent the same way she always did it, right at the neck. That night, I didn't sleep. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. Every night around the same time, between 12:30 and 1:30, I'd hear faint noises coming from the kitchen. The clatter of dishes, the soft hiss of a gas burner, the sound of a fridge door closing. The first time I smelled her perfume again, lavender and vanilla, I nearly dropped my drink. It was like she'd just walked past me. I started recording audio from my phone, leaving it on the counter overnight. When I played it back the next morning, there were hours of silence followed by faint sounds, knife tapping, a woman humming. The same lullaby Emily used to hum while cooking. I took the recordings to a friend of mine, Dave, who works in audio forensics. He thought I was pranking him, but after a week of listening, even he got quiet. He said, "There's something strange about these clips, man. The background noise. It's like there's water somewhere, like she's cooking underwater." That made no sense, but when I listened again with headphones, I heard it too. A faint bubbling like boiling water. It wasn't just the sounds either. Objects started moving. One night I came home from work and found 2 bowls set neatly on the dining table, each filled with steaming soup. My hands trembled as I leaned closer. The smell was unmistakable. Chicken, carrots, celery, Emily's recipe. I checked the stove. It was off. The pot was clean. No sign of cooking anywhere. I threw the bowls away and tried to tell myself I was losing my mind. Stress, maybe. Guilt. After all, our breakup hadn't been clean. The last fight we had was ugly. She'd accused me of cheating, something I hadn't done. I'd shouted things I didn't mean, told her she was paranoid, that she needed help. She left crying, slammed the door, and never came back. A week later, her sister called. Emily had been found in her apartment, unconscious. Pills. Too many to count. She survived for 2 days in a coma before she passed. I never got to say goodbye. After the funeral, I tried to move on, but every time I stepped into the kitchen, I saw her everywhere. The dent she left in the fridge handle, the tiny burn mark on the counter where she once dropped a hot pan. The memories clung to that place like smoke. Now, 2 years later, it felt like she'd never really left. One night, after another round of the phantom cooking sounds, I decided to confront it head-on. I stayed awake until midnight, lights off, camera recording. I sat in the living room, staring at the doorway that led to the kitchen. At exactly 12:46 a.m., the faucet turned on by itself. Water gushed into the sink, echoing through the quiet house. Then, faintly, I heard humming. That same tune, soft, slow, and haunting. My skin prickled. I stood up, took a slow step forward. The humming grew louder, closer. When I peeked into the kitchen, my blood ran cold. Someone was standing by the counter. The outline was faint, almost transparent, like smoke in the shape of a woman, her hair long and wet, dripping onto the floor. She was stirring something in a pot that wasn't really there. My voice cracked. "Emily?" She didn't look up. The smell hit me next. Lavender and boiling chicken soup. I could see the steam curling upward even though there was no pot. I whispered again, "Emily, please." She stopped stirring. Slowly, her head turned toward me. Her eyes, those same deep brown eyes I used to love, were hollow now, dark like empty wells. "Are you hungry?" she whispered. My heart nearly stopped. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The lights flickered, then went out completely. In the darkness, I heard the sound of a spoon scraping against a bowl. Then, footsteps, coming toward me. When I hit the light switch, the kitchen was empty. The floor, though, was wet. Puddles trailed from the sink to where I'd been standing. The next morning, I checked the footage. At first, it showed nothing, just me sitting there staring into the kitchen. Then, at 12:46, the faucet turned on by itself. The humming began. But when the figure appeared, the camera glitched. Static. Lines. Then for half a second a face, pale, distorted, grinning. It wasn't quite Emily's. I deleted the footage. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to prove it was real. That day I packed a bag and checked into a motel. But the haunting didn't stop there. That night I heard the same humming through the motel vent. Faint, but unmistakable. The front desk clerk said no one was staying in the room next to mine. I tried moving again, sold the house, left town. Bought a small cabin near the woods in Oregon. Remote, quiet, peaceful. I thought if ghosts existed, they couldn't follow me across states. I was wrong. A month after I settled in, I woke to the smell of something cooking. It was 2 a.m. My stomach twisted. I went to the kitchen. The stove was on, a pot simmering, lid rattling gently. Steam filled the air, carrying that same familiar smell, Emily's soup. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside was clear water, nothing else. I turned off the burner and backed away. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. A text. "Did you miss dinner?" My vision blurred. I dropped the phone. When I looked down again, the message was gone. Weeks passed. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? A haunted ex-wife who cooked ghostly soup every night? But I could feel her presence getting stronger. I'd wake to see handprints on the fogged bathroom mirror, small and delicate like hers. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I could feel her fingers brushing against my cheek, cold and wet. Then came the dreams. I was standing in our old kitchen, but it was flooded up to my knees. Emily was there, stirring a pot as water poured from the ceiling. She looked up and smiled. "It's almost ready," she said. I tried to speak, but my throat was full of water. When I woke up, my bed was damp. My phone on the nightstand showed a missed call, her number. I finally broke. I drove back to our old house, the one I'd sold. The new owners were out of town, and I still had a spare key hidden under a rock by the porch. I don't know what I expected to find. Closure, maybe. Inside, the house smelled the same. Lavender and soup. The kitchen lights flickered when I stepped inside. Everything looked exactly as it used to. The pots, the wooden board, even that bent spoon on the table. I whispered, "Emily, if you're here, I'm sorry." Silence. Then faintly from behind me. Too late. I turned and saw her reflection in the oven door. She was standing right behind me, eyes hollow, lips pale blue. "You were supposed to eat," she said softly. "You never did." I backed away, shaking my head. "Eat what?" She smiled, tilting her head. "What I made for you." Suddenly, the pot on the stove began to boil violently, bubbling over, steam hissing. I looked inside and nearly vomited. Floating in the water was a wedding ring. Mine. When I looked up, she was gone. But the spoon on the counter began to move by itself, slowly turning toward me. Then it bent, snapped clean in half. The lights went out. I woke up hours later on the kitchen floor. The house was empty again, dark and still, but in my hand was the bent spoon. My wedding ring lay beside it, wet. I stumbled outside, gasping for air. The sun was rising, birds chirping like nothing had happened. I dropped the spoon in the dirt and walked away without looking back. That was a month ago. Since then, I've been trying to live normally. But sometimes, when I turn on the stove, I smell her perfume. And once, when I opened my fridge, I found a pot inside. Inside it, clear water. And at the bottom, another spoon. Bent exactly the way she used to do it. The texts started again last night. Dinner's getting cold. I didn't reply. I just unplugged my phone. But tonight, as I sit here writing this, I can hear something coming from the kitchen again. The faint clatter of dishes, the gentle hiss of a burner, and that smell. Lavender and chicken soup. I don't need to look. I already know what I'll find. Because no matter where I go, Emily always finds her way back to feed me. And maybe tonight, I'll finally let her. I used to believe grief was something that came in waves, sharp at first, then softer each time it hit. I know better now. Grief doesn't fade, it changes its voice. My ex-wife, Laura, died 18 months ago. The night it happened, I was at the hospital holding our newborn daughter, Maya. Laura had delivered her early, complications piling up faster than the doctors could explain. 1 hour she was joking about how Maya had her nose. The next, alarms were shrieking, and I was being pushed out of the room. When the surgeon came out, he didn't have to say anything. I could see the truth on his face. I raised Maya alone after that. Our marriage had already been a wreck before the pregnancy. Papers signed, lawyers paid. We'd planned to co-parent from separate apartments. But when she died, something inside me refused to accept it. The person I'd loved and hated in equal measure was frozen in that last unfinished conversation, the one where she'd said, "You'll never raise her right without me." For a while, I thought she was wrong. Then the monitor started talking. I bought a cheap baby monitor set from a thrift store. It was analog, two-way audio, little green lights that flickered when Maya cried. For the first 3 months, it worked fine. Then, one night around 2:12 a.m., the receiver on my bedside table crackled. At first, it sounded like interference, pops and soft static, but then a whisper slipped through. "Shh. It's okay, honey. Mommy's here." I sat bolt upright. Maya was asleep in the next room. The apartment was dark except for the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. I grabbed the receiver and pressed the talk button. "Who's there?" Only static answered. I ran to Maya's room. She was sleeping soundly, tiny fists tucked under her chin. The monitor camera's red LED blinked steadily. Everything looked normal. Still, my skin prickled. I unplugged the baby unit and checked every inch of the nursery. Closet, window, under the crib. Nothing. I told myself it was feedback from a nearby frequency. Maybe another monitor on the same channel. Maybe a neighbor's. But the next night it happened again. Same time. Same voice. "Shh. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." The tone was soft, melodic, the way Laura used to sing to Maya in the hospital. The exact pitch, the same tired warmth. I switched frequencies, bought a new set the next day, digital, encrypted. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, I was washing bottles in the kitchen when the monitor lit up by itself. The receiver wasn't even turned on. The little green light pulsed, and through the speaker came a faint lullaby. It was the one Laura had written for Maya before she was born. We'd recorded it on her phone. But that file had been lost when the phone was destroyed in the crash. I dropped the bottle and ran to the nursery. The air was cold, not draft cold, wrong cold. Still, heavy. The kind of cold that seems to press against your skin instead of around it. Maya stirred, cooing softly, and the lullaby stopped. I whispered, "Laura." No answer. Just the soft click of the mobile above the crib turning once, though I hadn't touched it. I I started recording the audio output directly onto my laptop. For nights, nothing unusual happened. Then, on March 7th, the monitor came alive again. The recording caught it this time. A woman's voice, quiet, distorted by static. "Tom, my name. Don't let her near the water." I froze the playback, heart pounding. We lived on the 4th floor of an apartment complex. There was no water, unless she meant the bathtub. The next evening, while bathing Maya, she suddenly started crying, screaming, like she'd been burned. I pulled her out instantly. The water was lukewarm. No reason for that reaction. But for the briefest second, I thought I saw something moving under the surface, something pale shifting, almost like a hand retreating down the drain. That night I didn't sleep. I sent the recording to a friend who works in signal analysis. He told me the file had an impossible frequency layer, sound patterns far below human hearing but still shaping the waveform, like someone whispering under the noise. He said it looked like multiple voices woven together, though you could only clearly hear one. When he sent me the spectrogram image, I zoomed in. Hidden among the noise was a shape that looked eerily like a face. Laura's face. He swore it was pareidolia, a trick of the pattern. I wasn't convinced. Over the next month, the voice began to change. It wasn't always gentle anymore. Sometimes it scolded. "You're doing it wrong. She's crying because of you. You promised you'd protect her." I unplugged the monitor entirely and threw it in the closet. 2 nights later, I woke up to Maya crying through the same monitor, sitting on the nightstand beside me, glowing green. I hadn't moved it. The voice came again, louder, harsher. "You can't keep her from me, Tom." The receiver flew off the table, hitting the wall hard enough to crack the plastic. I grabbed Maya and left the apartment that night. We moved into my sister's house for a while. She thought I was overworked, grieving. I let her think that. The monitor stayed boxed in my trunk. For 3 peaceful weeks, nothing happened. Then, one rainy afternoon, I left the car unlocked while unloading groceries. When I came back, the box was open. The monitor was sitting in the driver's seat, powered on. A message scrolled across the tiny LCD screen, something the device shouldn't even be able to display. "Hello, Tom." I slammed the trunk shut, drove to the nearest dumpster and threw both units in. That night, while rocking Maya to sleep, the baby monitor app on my phone, which I had never installed, opened by itself. The live feed was pure black except for faint ripples like water. Then the image cleared for 1 second. Laura's face stared back at me, wet hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes pale and wide, mouth moving silently. I dropped the phone, nearly waking Maya. When I picked it up again, the app was gone, vanished from the screen as if it never existed. I started dreaming about her after that. In the dreams, I'd wake to the sound of Maya crying, only to find Laura already there, rocking her. Every time I tried to take the baby, Laura would smile and say, "She's safer with me." I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the monitor's phantom static ringing in my ears. By late summer, strange things began happening even when the monitor wasn't around. My phone would buzz at 2:12 a.m., the same minute the first whisper ever came. When I answered, all I'd hear was the low hum of static and faint breathing, sometimes a word. "Hungry? Cold? Come back." I stopped answering. Then one night I heard it again, not through any device but through the baby's monitor in the nursery. Except there wasn't a monitor anymore. I'd destroyed every piece of it. Still, the familiar crackle filled the room, followed by the soft lullaby. I stepped inside, heart hammering. The crib was rocking gently on its own. Maya was sound asleep. From the dark corner came a whisper. "You're keeping her from me." A shape unfolded from the shadow. Tall, fragile, skin too pale, clothes hanging heavy and wet. Her hair clung to her shoulders in slick strands. "Laura," I breathed. She looked at me, not with anger, but with something worse. Pity. "She doesn't belong here, Tom. Neither do I." I wanted to run to grab Maya and never look back, but my legs wouldn't move. Laura reached into the crib, brushed a finger across Maya's cheek, then held that same finger to her lips. See? She doesn't even wake when I touch her. The room smelled of antiseptic and river mud. "She's mine too," Laura whispered. "You promised." I blinked, and she was gone. The crib was still. Maya slept peacefully, a faint smile on her tiny face. On her wrist, though, was a smudge of dark water. After that night, I took Maya to stay with my parents in Vermont. They live off the grid. No Wi-Fi, no electronics except a landline. I thought distance and silence might break whatever connection Laura's spirit still had to us. For nearly a month, nothing happened. No voices, no cold spots. Just normal, exhausting parenthood. I started to hope it was finally over. Then, one morning, I woke to Maya babbling happily in her crib. She was holding something. Small, plastic, white. It was the transmitter half of the original baby monitor. The thrift store one. The one I'd thrown out months ago. My blood turned to ice. I snatched it away and ran outside, ready to smash it. But before I could, it crackled to life in my hand. A whisper slid through the static. "Don't take her where I can't follow." I hurled it into the woods and kept running until my lungs burned. When I came back, the monitor was sitting on the porch steps, perfectly dry despite the morning dew. That night, I decided to end it. I waited until Maya was asleep, took the monitor down to the lake behind my parents' house, and tied it to a rock with fishing line. As I tossed it in, a wave of cold air rushed across the water. The surface rippled, glowing faintly under the moonlight. For a second, I thought I saw a figure standing beneath the water, hair floating around her like seaweed. Then the light faded. The ripples stilled. I told myself it was done. But this morning when I walked into Maya's room, the baby monitor was sitting on the dresser again. No rock, no water damage. The green light blinking steadily. I don't know how long I stood there before picking it up. The speaker hissed softly, then cleared. "Thank you," the voice said. It was calm this time, almost human. "Don't worry, Tom. She'll never be alone again." Maya giggled in her sleep. And then, from the receiver in my hand, another sound joined the static. 2 heartbeats, faint but steady, perfectly in sync. I buried the monitor in the woods this afternoon. Deep. 6 feet. I didn't mark the spot. But as the sun set, I heard the faint lullaby drifting from the trees behind me, carried on the wind. Now as I write this, Maya's asleep again, and the house is quiet. But the baby monitor app on my phone, the one that shouldn't exist, has reappeared. It says, "Connected." The feed is dark except for a shimmer, like light reflecting on water. Somewhere deep in that darkness, a woman hums a lullaby, and my daughter hums back. I never thought I'd return to Emily's apartment again after our divorce. It had been almost 2 years since the last time I stood in that small, ivy-wrapped building on Sycamore Street. The place had this heavy air, the kind that settles into your skin and refuses to leave. But when her landlord called me one morning, saying her unit was being cleared out and there were still a few of my belongings left behind, I didn't think twice. I should have. I should have just told him to throw everything away. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, got the better of me. Emily and I had ended things badly. I'm not proud of how it happened. She'd struggled with depression for years, and I wasn't patient enough. When she began talking about strange noises, whispers from mirrors, and seeing her reflection move differently from her own movements, I dismissed it as paranoia. I called it attention-seeking. She cried that night, saying I didn't believe her anymore. That was the last time I saw her, until I found her obituary 3 months later. Suicide, pills, and wine, alone. Even now, when I think of her name, a cold shiver runs through me. So when I walked into that apartment again, I swear I could still feel her presence, or not in a romantic way, but in that heavy, suffocating kind of way, like grief clinging to the walls. Dust coated everything. The smell of old perfume still lingered faintly, mixed with mold. The landlord had left the keys on the counter and told me to lock up when I was done. Her furniture was gone except for one thing, a massive antique mirror leaning against the far wall. I didn't remember her owning anything like that. It wasn't her style. The frame was carved with strange patterns, almost like vines twisted around faces, their mouths open in silent screams. The glass itself had a faint fog, like it was breathing. I walked closer. My reflection looked warped, slightly off. It wasn't the kind of distortion you get from old glass. My reflection's eyes seemed darker, deeper, almost hollow. I stepped back, heart pounding. Maybe it was just the lighting, I told myself. But when I turned to leave, something in the mirror flickered. Emily's face. I froze. It wasn't a trick of light. It was her. Pale, tear-streaked, wearing the same silk nightgown she died in, her hair a tangled mess. And she was staring right at me. Emily? My voice cracked. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice inside my head. Faint, trembling. You left me here. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The mirror trembled but didn't fall. I wanted to run, but something, guilt, fear, maybe love, made me stay. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't know you were. Her reflection's mouth twisted into a grim smile. You knew. You just didn't care. Then, as suddenly as she appeared, she was gone. My own reflection stared back at me again, except it wasn't perfectly in sync. It smiled. I didn't. I grabbed my old box of books and left without looking back. But from the hallway, I could still hear a faint tapping, like fingernails on glass. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her reflection, her accusing stare. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a FaceTime call. The caller ID said Emily. I dropped the phone. It buzzed on the carpet, still ringing. I hesitated, then picked it up. The call had ended. No missed call record. No contact under that name in my phone anymore. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't think straight. Something about that mirror gnawed at me, like it wasn't finished with me yet. I told myself I'd go back, just once, to see if it was really there, if what I saw was real. When I returned, the door was wide open. The landlord said nobody had been there since me. Inside, the mirror was gone. Just an empty rectangle of clean floor where it had stood. But written on the wall in what looked like red lipstick were the words, "You finally came back." My stomach twisted. I ran. Days passed, weeks. I tried to move on, to convince myself that grief was playing tricks on me. But then the dreams began. In every dream, I stood in front of that same mirror. Emily was always behind the glass, begging me to trade places with her. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the words, "You finally came back," echoing in my head. I stopped sleeping properly. One night, my bathroom mirror fogged up while I was showering. When I wiped the steam away, Emily's reflection smiled at me instead of my own. I screamed and stumbled back, slipping on the floor. When I looked again, it was gone. That same night, I got a message from an unknown number. Just one line, "The mirror misses you." I threw my phone across the room. I decided to visit her old apartment again, hoping to destroy whatever was left of that thing. But when I arrived, the entire building was abandoned. Windows boarded up, paint peeling off. I asked a nearby store clerk what happened to the tenants. He said, "Place has been empty since that woman killed herself. Nobody's lived there since 2018. My throat went dry. No one? Not even the landlord? He shook his head. That guy, he died 2 years ago. Heart attack. So who called me that day? Who gave me the keys? When I got home, something was leaning against my bedroom wall, wrapped in a white sheet. My hands trembled as I unwrapped it. It was the mirror. And behind the fogged glass, faint but visible, was Emily, smiling. Except this time, her lips moved. Your turn. I blacked out. When I woke, I was standing in front of the mirror again. Only this time, it wasn't my room I was seeing. It was hers, exactly as it had been the night she died. Same bed, same wine bottle, same empty pill container. I looked down. The reflection of me, or whatever it was, smirked and walked away from the mirror, leaving me inside. I pounded on the glass, screaming, but no sound came out. I could only watch as my reflection, wearing my body, turned off the lights and whispered, "You finally came back." Now I'm trapped here. Days don't pass, nights don't end. The reflection in the real world, the thing wearing my face, still lives my life. But sometimes when the lights go out, people say they see another figure in their mirrors watching, begging to get out. If you ever find an old mirror with carvings like twisted vines and screaming faces, smash it. Because it's not a reflection, it's a door. And someone, somewhere, is always waiting for it to open again. It's strange how a house can hold memories even when no one lives there anymore. For 5 years, I've been trying to sell the old 2-story home on Ashgrove Lane, the one my ex-wife Lauren and I bought when we first got married. Every realtor I hire quits after the first showing. They say there's a bad feeling inside. One of them swore she heard someone whisper her name while taking photos for the listing. I don't blame them. There is something wrong with that house. Lauren and I had what most people would call a perfect life. A quiet neighborhood, stable jobs, matching coffee mugs, and a white Labrador we adored. But under that perfect picture, things were falling apart. Lauren had these mood swings. She'd go from laughter to tears in seconds. She said she felt someone watching her when she was alone. I told her it was stress. I told her she needed rest. Then one night she woke me up screaming. She said there was a woman standing at the foot of our bed, pale skin, long black hair, eyes like smoke. I turned on the light. Nothing. She begged me to believe her, but I told her she was dreaming. A month later, she was gone. Suicide. At least that's what the police said. But the thing is, she didn't leave a note. No goodbye. No explanation. And she was terrified of death. That's what haunts me the most. After her funeral, I couldn't stand staying in that house, but selling it was impossible. Every buyer backed out after their first visit. One man even called me in the middle of the night, saying he saw a woman's reflection in the upstairs window, even though no one was inside. I stopped going there, for a while. Then last year I started having dreams about Lauren again. Not the sweet, nostalgic kind. These were vivid, real. I'd see her in our old kitchen, humming, her back turned to me. Every time I tried to speak, she'd tilt her head and whisper, "You shouldn't have left me alone." One night, the dream felt too real to ignore. I woke up drenched in sweat, grabbed my keys and drove to the house at 2:47 a.m. When I arrived, the porch light was on. I know I hadn't left it that way. My heart thudded in my chest as I unlocked the door. The air smelled exactly like it used to when she cooked. Rosemary, burnt toast, and perfume. Everything was exactly as we left it. The same throw blanket on the couch. The same framed photo on the wall. I hadn't kept those things there. Someone had put them back. "Lauren," I said, barely above a whisper. Something moved upstairs. A soft creak, like a footstep. I told myself it was the house settling, but deep down I already knew. I went up slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The hallway carpet muffled my steps. When I reached our bedroom, the door was half open. Inside, someone had made the bed, neatly, the same floral comforter Lauren used. On the nightstand, her old wedding ring gleamed in the light. I hadn't seen that ring in years. Then came the smell. Her perfume. Not faint, not lingering. Fresh. Like she had just walked past me. "Lauren?" The curtains fluttered, though the windows were shut. The light bulb flickered. Then I saw it. A faint shape in the mirror. A woman. Her head tilted. Her lips moved. "You came back." I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. The flashlight rolled away, beam spinning across the ceiling. When I looked back, she was gone. I ran out of the house, slamming the door behind me, gasping like I'd been underwater. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely start the car. But just before I turned the key, I looked up at the house one more time. There she was, standing in the upstairs window, watching me. After that night, I decided to have the place blessed. I called a local priest, Father Raymond. He agreed to visit, but the moment he stepped through the door, he went pale. "You didn't tell me this was her house," he said quietly. I frowned. "Her?" He didn't answer, just sprinkled holy water around and muttered prayers. But as he stood near the stairs, he suddenly froze. His hand trembled. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I listened. There was faint whispering coming from upstairs. I couldn't make out the words. Father Raymond's voice quivered. "She's not at peace. Something holds her here." "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked at me, eyes wide, terrified. "You need to tell me what really happened to your wife." I shook my head. "She took her own life." He stepped closer. "Did she?" I didn't answer, because truthfully, I didn't know. That night, I found something that made me question everything. While cleaning the attic, I found a small wooden box I'd never seen before. Inside were old Polaroids, Lauren smiling, cooking, sitting by the window. But in the background of every photo, there was another woman. Shadowy, unrecognizable, always standing behind her. My stomach twisted. The last photo was different. Lauren was lying on the bed, eyes open, lips parted. And on the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words: "She didn't kill herself." I dropped the photo and stumbled back. The attic door slammed shut behind me. I turned toward the mirror across the room, and there she was again. Lauren. Her eyes were darker now, hollow. "You let her in?" she whispered. "Who?" I cried. "Who did I let in?" She smiled. "Me." The light flickered, and for the first time, I saw what she really looked like. Her skin was pale gray, veins spidering across her face. Her mouth stretched too wide, her voice echoing from somewhere far beyond the walls. "I told you I was never leaving this house." The next thing I remember is waking up in my car, my head pounding, my clothes damp with sweat, the house behind me completely dark. I never went back. But every night I still dream of her, standing in the hallway waiting. Sometimes I wake up to the smell of rosemary and perfume, even though I live hundreds of miles away. The last realtor I spoke to sent me a text last week. It said, "Someone already lives in the house. I saw her looking out the window." I didn't reply, because I already know who it is. Lauren never left, and she never will.